So I will say hi everyone and thank you for joining our webinar. This is the first webinar in the series where we will talk about creating a successful YSEALI Seeds application. This is quite a great opportunity for you to learn more inside information. We will talk about some mistakes to avoid. We will talk about some good things to highlight in your application to stand out from the pool of applicants. And at the same time, we'll open up the floor for some questions in the end. So in just a moment, make sure to, again, put your hi, hellos, and introductions into the chat. And anything, if you have specific questions, put the questions in the Q&A box. Both could be found in the chat box. I also hear some sound coming in, just making sure that all the microphones are muted. All right, everyone? Excellent, thank you. We have Indonesia, Myanmar. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. Okay, if everyone are ready, we have an hour and a lot of information to cover, but it's going to be great. So let's start from the very beginning, and I will ask my colleague Jill to help us out with chat and Q&A function while we are going through the applications, through the webinar here. All right. My name is Natalia Etten. I am a program officer at Cultural Vistas, and I've been managing YSEALI Seeds for the Future for a couple of years now. And I'm super excited to be doing this work as it's very interesting and engaging to learn about different people's stories and watch this amazing ideas and projects and innovations come to life. If those of you who might still wondering what YSEALI is or what YSEALI Seeds is, just a brief information. The Young Southeast Asian Leaders Initiative, or YSEALI, was launched in 2013, and it's one of the signature US government's programs that are designed to strengthen leadership development and networking in Southeast Asia. YSEALI offers a variety of different programs and initiatives, and YSEALI Seeds for the Future is one of the programs that YSEALI offers. YSEALI Seeds is sponsored also by the US Department of State and funded through a grant from the US mission to ASEAN. And again, just to remind everybody, in case if you're joining for the first time, YSEALI Seeds for the Future is a small grants competition. It provides funding for the Southeast Asia's most promising young leaders who want to carry out projects to improve their communities or countries or the entire region. And typically, those projects will cover one of the 4 YSEALI themes, and we will talk more about these, but those are civic engagement, education, economic growth, and sustainable development. All right. Right here on the screen, you see those young leaders, aspiring young leaders from 11 countries who, just like you, were tuning in maybe last year, really wanting to do something incredibly important in their communities. And they made the choice to apply for the YSEALI Seeds for the Future 2020 last year. And some of those leaders were selected, and we see them all together gathered in Hanoi, Vietnam in February last year, when it was still allowed and safe for us to do so, as we were celebrating the winning projects, 25 projects for 2020. It was an incredible time for them to start their journey. They're almost at the end right now, and we will definitely hear more from some of the successful YSEALI Seeds projects this year, so stay tuned. Speaking of, just so we are all on the same page here, some important dates and information for you to keep in mind. Right now, we are hosting our first webinar, which is how to create a successful YSEALI Seeds application. It's a general webinar where we talk about, do's and don'ts, mistakes to avoid, things to focus on. Then during the second webinar next week, and it's going to be hosted every single week from October 14th until November 4th. So every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Jakarta time. So same webinar, just different links for each webinar. So the second webinar, we will focus specifically on your YSEALI Seeds application. We will basically dissect the application into parts and talk about what it is important to cover in each section of your application. We'll talk about YSEALI theme. We'll talk about building a budget that is trustworthy, that is smart and helpful, which is one of the important pieces of your application. During the third webinar, we will invite 3 amazing YSEALI Seeds grantees from 2020 cohort. They are excited to meet you all and talk to you all. They will be sharing about their journey of applying to YSEALI Seeds for the future. And most of the time we'll open the floor for questions that will be coming in from you. So make sure to be prepared with questions, especially as you work on your applications. Write it down, bring it back, and you will be able to ask the questions. Now, speaking about questions, I do see that some of you are posting some questions in the Q&A box. As I mentioned, on the bottom of your screen, you should see the Q&A box and the chat box. Chat box would be for you to say hi or let us know if any technical issues come up. But the Q&A box, let's focus on that for your specific questions related to the content of this webinar. We will have a Q&A at the end of the webinar. So make sure to tune in and listen to some information I'll be giving today. Maybe the answer will be coming in as I'm developing my thought here, as I'm presenting information to you, but we'll definitely focus on your questions at the end of this webinar as well. So thank you for your patience. I know that everybody are ready to apply and have questions already. Going back to webinar 4 would be our last webinar in the series. It's titled Developing and Implementing an Impactful Project. So that webinar will be the final touch, so to speak, on your overall application preparation. Most of that time during the webinar will be open for your questions. Any last moment questions about your application, the crafting budget, or any other application related questions for the YSEALI Seeds for the future, we'll open the time for you. And I will also give a few great examples from the past, examples of projects that are sustainable, successful, innovative, and things like that. And again, important other date to remember is application deadline. As of now, our deadline is November 8th, 2020. So, and it's going to be at the end of the day. So we put 11:59 p.m. Jakarta time, which means that really by the end of the day. The application link will not be available after that time. So make sure that you plan your time accordingly. Do not try to submit all of the your application in the last day. This is one of the mistakes, I guess, that I see from great projects, you know, but they wait until the very last moment. And, you know, if you imagine hundreds of people start uploading things on the very last day, sometimes, you know, there might be glitches in the system. So make sure that you at least have a day or two before the deadline to apply and make sure that your application is successfully submitted. In terms of program overall, if you're wondering, and of course you probably are as you're planning for your program, for your project overall, the important dates here to remember are projects will be selected and teams will be notified sometime in February 2021. Then this year we will have a virtual kickoff workshop. Typically every year we gather everybody in person and we have a 2-day intensive dive in informational networking in a workshop. This year we will do also a 2-day kickoff workshop, but it's going to be in a virtual space with the hope that sometime later we might meet in person. But this is for you to plan that in March there's going to be the kickstart of the project. Then the implementation period for your project will be from March to December 2021. That's also important to know. This is your commitment and this is where you dedicate your time to make your project happen if you are selected. And then the final reporting on your project would be January 2022. By January 2022, you agree to finish what you proposed in your proposal to accomplish. All right. All right, and then let's start from the very, very basic start. This is something that I want to address right away. I'm sure you have seen this already on the website, but make sure that you're eligible before you apply. If you're not eligible, your application is not valid, you are not eligible. So make sure that you don't put all of your work and efforts and then, you just didn't check something as simple as eligibility criteria. So that's the first thing you need to check on. Please check, first of all, your citizenship. You must be a citizen of one of the 11 countries, YSEALI countries, or ASEAN plus Timor-Leste. So it's Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, Timor-Leste, right? So you got to be a citizen of one of those countries. Then you might have a multi-country team. That's fine. That's great, for us. We love to work with people who work from multiple countries on a project. You just need to make sense in your application, right? So basically, if you have a Indonesian citizen and Cambodian citizen work together on a project in Indonesia and Cambodia, yeah, that kind of makes sense logically, again, depending on the details of the project. But let's say if you have a team of Indonesian applicants who live in Indonesia, they're Indonesian citizens, but then they want to make a project in Philippines, then I would have a question, do you have anybody in the Philippines that is locally sort of has a network? How are you going to do it? What kind of expertise do you have? And things like that. So make sure that it has a logical sense and it's smart, right? So another thing we say that all applicants must be between 18 years and 35 years old. This is the YSEALI sort of requirement. If you are younger than 18, I do get that question a lot. We are so excited that you're eager to become a leader and do a project. We're really happy for you. We would just ask you maybe to volunteer or become a part of another YSEALI Seeds team as a consultant or as a additional team member, so you can learn, get some experience, and then apply when you are 18 years old or older. If you want to be a project leader, project secretary, or a project treasurer, which I will cover in just a moment. So another criteria here is your project must address at least one of the 4 core YSEALI themes. So it's civic engagement, education, economic growth, or sustainable development. It's okay if there are several themes in one project. In fact, we do see this all the time, that most of the projects nowadays get submitted, they don't cover just one theme. Typically, there is quite a few things going on, and and in fact, that's what the strong project might be, if you are incorporating variety of different strong ways to achieve your goal of your project. So it could be, I will give some examples in the next slides as well. We continue with eligibility here. So another main sort of criteria or eligibility, something you need to think about before you apply, is that you need to have at least 3 team members in order to apply for the project. You need to have a designated project leader, project secretary, and a treasurer. All must be YSEALI members from one of the 10 ASEAN nations and Timor-Leste. In order to become a YSEALI member, you need to go on US Mission to ASEAN or YSEALI website, and there's going to be a section on the side of the website asking you to join YSEALI. So you click on join YSEALI, provide your information, and you become a member. We have this information on YSEALiSeeds.org, our website as well. So the same website where you go to submit your application, there is information right there on how to join YSEALI. So the reason why we say 3 team members, it's quite important. In the past, we've noticed that the teams that have success are the ones that have accountability, and they have more than just one person, driving the change, making the impact. There are at least 3 people to divide responsibilities, make it more manageable, because frankly, you volunteer your time to do this work for your community. And it's a lot of time, it's a lot of effort. You need to have a team to do that. So next, project must be completed between March and December 2021. So this is what you need to think about. Sometimes I see projects submit great ideas, but something that might take 3 years to accomplish. I mean, it's great. There's nothing wrong with your project probably, but for the specific sake of the YSEALI Seeds for the future criteria, you need to think of a project that you can start and finish within the 9-month period, 9 or 10-month period, okay? So think about that. It does not mean that your project ends in December 2021. In fact, we want to see your project keep on living and keep on sustaining itself after December 2021, okay? But the main things that you plan, that you put in your proposal, needs to happen between March and December 2021, all right? And last thing I would mention here is that previous YSEALI Seeds winners could serve only as consultants or support team members. Unfortunately, if you have already been awarded YSEALI Seeds for the Future grant before, that's great. We love you. You are our alum for, you know, the rest of our life in your life. It's great to have you as a resource. So, but you cannot take a role of a project leader, secretary, or treasurer. You should join as a consultant or another team member, support, do all these things. We will never say no to you, just so everybody clear knows. Let's dive deeper into YSEALI Seeds themes and just have some examples here. So when we talk about economic growth, I mean, it's very self-explanatory, but maybe let me give you an example of one of the current teams that might actually help you out pinpoint what it is that we mean. So Project Start Me app from the Philippines submitted a great proposal. Their idea actually was to design or teach people in the Philippines to start a business through an online app application from basically anywhere, anytime, and with any budget, which is a great idea. And it's an idea to actually support local economy, support local small business and aspiring entrepreneurs, and helping them along the way with figuring out how to do it correctly, legally, with all of the documents and things like that. It's a great idea, and it does fit into the economic growth YSEALI theme. Next one, education. We do get a lot of education themed projects, and I wanted to bring an example of Future Deaf Teachers, which is a great, fantastic project from Vietnam this year. Their project actually, even though it is within the realm of education, but it does have other things in it as well. And the reason why is because this project is aimed to improve social inclusion and creating career opportunities for deaf people in the Mekong Delta through sign language teaching. So as you can see, even though they use education as an actual method, you know, so there is within the field of education, but at the same time, they are empowering people through economic growth, which is another theme incorporated into their project. Now, civic engagement. So a great example is Impact to Youth Timor-Leste. So another great project that has several themes in here, but one of the main one is civic engagement. So the way they are sort of proposing their activities, they are saying that they are here to empower Timorese youth to build sustainable future through pilot grants, podcast series, and capacity building bootcamp on social innovation. So as you can see, the project is aiming to empower, civically empower and engage local youth, but the way they do it is through different kind of ways of educational activities. So as you see, overlap here. Now, sustainable development is the fourth YSEALI theme that we would like to see in applications. An example here is a project from Indonesia called ETAM Impact Academy for Sanitation Heroes. So the aim of the project, basically, youth-driven impact accelerator for innovative ideas on water sanitation and hygiene to address children's stunting and mortality in East Kalimantan. So again, the team got together, they assessed the situation, they saw the need, and they saw the need in the community that is very much prevailing before anything else could be done. And the first need is really address the issue of water sanitation and hygiene. And this is sustainable development. So, but again, the way they achieve their goals is through some of the educational programming that they do, educational webinars, you know, different talks and different competitions with posters and submissions from local people as well. So different educational activities, but the goal is sustainable development. So I hope those examples help you a little bit. Again, if you would like to see more examples, please go to YSEALiSeeds.org. This is the main website where you can find the application itself. You can find more information on our webinars that we are hosting. So the schedule and the link is all in there. At the same time as well, you can find information on all the YSEALI Seeds grantees or projects, I should say, as well. So you can go and see the 2020 grantees, 2019, 18, and 17 as well, and just read what kind of examples of projects are out there, so you can think about your project as well. All right. And again, just would like to remind everybody that we do have a chat function and a Q&A function on the bottom of your screen. So in the chat function, let us know, if there are any technical issues, or if you'd like to just say hi and say where you're from. But we will utilize the Q&A function specifically for questions regarding the content of this webinar, and I will address these questions at the end of our webinar today. All right, so what are we looking for in the application, right? The million-dollar question, so to speak, we have this phrase. So obviously, there are so many great things that people have in mind when they think about innovative, wonderful, impactful project, but sometimes other pieces are missing, and all in all, the project might not be as feasible. So let's talk about each segment here. We're looking for a scalable project. Scalable means that your project has a potential to be basically, you can grow it from a small into something larger and spread it further or reach higher. Basically, you can scale it up, build it up, make it bigger, make it more impactful, right? Another thing, we're looking for sustainable. So think about not just the one-time thing that you got your YSEALI Seeds funding, you did your project for a few months, and then that's it, you walk away. We want you to think long-term. We want you to think about, how do I use this YSEALI Seeds grant funding right now so I can build it up? And then next year, I am more sustainable as a result of the YSEALI Seeds funding that were given to me, so I don't have to worry about funding that much this year, right? So use it as a starting platform for you. So another thing is feasible. Very often I see applications when the requested funding would be $15,000, for example, which is the highest amount that you can request on your project. But then when I see the list of activities or proposed activities, it seems like there is a discrepancy there, and the activities that are proposed could be done much cheaper than the $15,000, arguably, of course, but still, make sure that it is feasible. What you're proposing with the amount of money that you're asking all kind of makes sense. Either create a very compelling budget that really explains why you need this much money to do this much or this many activities, so it's clear. And also it needs to be equal to the impact you're trying to do. If you are requesting $15,000, but your impact is very small, and by small, I mean, of course, it's difficult to measure and say, how much, one transformed life is really worth it. It's priceless, right? But we are talking in terms of a project management and project implementation. If you are spending a lot of money with a very little outcome in the end, it might not be feasible, right? So you need to measure up and have a balance between the investment you make and the outcome you expect. At the same time, it goes the other way. If you ask for, $2,000, but you are saying that you're going to transform the entire economy of Indonesia, this would be also not feasible, right? Because you are taking on a very ambitious project, and how exactly you're going to do it, with $2,000. Just as an example, okay? So innovative, this is something I absolutely love. There is nothing more that makes the readers who review your applications remember you more than the very interesting, innovative idea that you bring. Please back it up, though, with a good proposal and a budget. This is what I definitely love to see in the applications, and I'll give you an example in the next slide for something very innovative that I still remember and the project got selected. So keep in mind on something that is not repetitive. And to do so, here's the secret: go to the YSEALISeeds.org and look at the projects that we already have funded. So think about if there are 10 education projects proposing teaching sustainability to teachers. well, maybe it's not as innovative, you know, at this point anymore because this has been done before. Maybe you should just join forces if you care a lot about, you know, teaching sustainability. Instead, what we're looking for is something that has not been done maybe, or has been done differently, or you believe that you can do it, you know, better or different. So think about innovative ideas. So another thing is replicable, right? Replicable means is that something that you do right now could be replicated or copy pasted, as I say, right? In another community in your country, or maybe in another country in your region. So something that could be reproduced, you know, copied and done somewhere else as well. Measurable impact. Definitely lots of projects forget about that. It's great that you are ambitious, and we want you to be, we want you to be ambitious and think about how you're going to change your communities, but have a measurable ideas in mind, something that we can track back and see what your impact really is, right? So it's either a specific number of people that you're going to reach within your project, or a specific community or number of communities you're going to reach. So have in mind a measurable impact, right? Then another thing is train the trainer. Something that we love to see is the project that has in mind a model where you would recruit some talented, you know, leaders who would then go on and train other people or other leaders in the community. So basically the project itself turns into this gift that keep on giving, if you know this phrase, basically something that keeps on working, you know, and multiplying as you train some people who will then go and train others. So multi-country is a great thing to look at the project too. So like I said, if your project is a single country, let's say your team is from Brunei and the project is in Brunei, great, that's awesome. If your team is from multiple countries and your project is in one country or in multiple countries, that's great too. Again, as long as it makes logical sense. Do not go after too many all at once. In the end, you know, if it's not feasible, if it's not possible to actually implement. So be sure to actually think it through. If you have multi-country, how are you going to communicate with each other? How are you going to manage this team with different time zones and things like that? So that's important to keep in mind for the success of your project. At the end of the day, we want everybody to succeed. That's the thing. We want to see that the project has a potential to be successful in the end. And the last point here is we're looking for people who will be future resource and engaged alumni in the future. As you will notice, we do engage our YSEALI Seeds alumni from last year, from this year, into different events. We want them to interact with new leaders and teach them and share their experience. So if you are that kind of person, please apply. We would like to see you. As I mentioned, a few examples. This project is from 2019, but it stood out to me personally as an example with how they incorporated innovation into their proposal. So what the project is called Tune Map, like I said, from Indonesia. The idea was behind the project is empowering people with visual impairment and improving city infrastructure through a navigation app and participatory mapping. So I have not seen events like this on such a scale before. And so what the team proposed was new, was interesting. They were not just working only with, you know, visually impaired people in Indonesia, but they were also helping the city to map out different imperfections on the path walks that actually, you know, are not helpful or prohibit visually impaired people to function fully in the city. And so they helped design a few reports for the city and kind of participated in different decision-making processes also to improve the infrastructure, which not only visually impaired people benefited from, but also everybody else. You know, who would not like to walk on a beautiful path walk that is not broken, right? So anyway, this was a great example, and they're very interesting. And they created this app that would actually tell you, and the volunteers would sign up and report different, you know, obstacles on the way, so then people could actually monitor it in real time and know how to avoid the obstacles on the path to get safely to where they're going. So beautiful idea. Again, this is just an example. And a few examples from 2020. Play Naturally from Brunei. Their idea was to connect Bruneian youth with nature and indigenous communities of the Sek Meribun, which is an ASEAN heritage site, through conservation theater and filmmaking program. Well, the theater portion did not happen as the pandemic hit, as we all know, so they quickly pivoted and readjusted to start making filmmaking program. So again, a beautiful idea, kind of two ideas merged into one. They are working with youth, educating about, protecting, ASEAN heritage site. They also engage local community, indigenous communities, so they are sort of in communication with local youth, and they also create art through that, which is a great way. A few more examples here. I'll go quickly. So Family Lead from Vietnam, another good example. Their idea is empowering female Vietnamese students to become leaders in their future workplaces through mentorship programs, public lectures, and seed funding for small projects. Now, this is an example of train the trainer project, as I was saying, as they are training a group of people, they're providing them with small sub grants. So then these young people can go on and do different kind of activities or impact their communities as well. Beautiful project as well. For the sake of time, I'll go slightly faster here, and then so I can have time to take your questions. I see there's quite a bit coming in. Giang Miang project from Laos, one of the ones I love, absolutely. The idea behind the project, and I love this photo, don't you love it? How everybody looking at Jim, the project leader showing different construction work, I think, or construction of different projects here. So the project is educating high school students in Vientiane about emerging technologies to prepare them to become future tech entrepreneurs and inventors. Again, great idea, even though you would think it's an education-themed project, but it also has economic growth in mind as well, just because it really empowers young people to think as entrepreneurs in the tech industry, which is great. All right. And again, those are just some examples, and as you can see, some examples are super new, innovative. Some are working with same ideas that are not new yet, right? Like, for example, women issues or women rights. It's not new, but yet it still needs to be addressed, for example, or education and other things. So what does make a good project planning then? So here you are, get inspired. You went on the, let's say, YSEALI Seeds website, you looked at the projects and you get, yes, I have my idea, I would like to apply. I would love for you to take a look at the slide. You can take a picture of that. We will send an email with the slides to everybody who join our Zoom webinar today with their email address. But just so you know, this is a production function model. There are different versions of such model when you think about project management, but in a very simplified way, here is what you need to think about when you plan a project. So think about the input. Input is all of the resources, people, funding, time, any other resources that are needed for you to make the project happen. Think about that, list it down, brainstorm it. Next thing is you think about process. So what kind of plans or maybe activities or events or meetings, what it is that needs to happen for your project to be accomplished, right? Sometimes I see teams thinking about the process first and then the input, which is still correct. That's all right to do. Sometimes you think about what and then about how. So input is kind of how, process is kind of what, right? So what it is that you propose to do. But, if people normally would think about input and process, very often people forget about output and outcome, right? They just do the project for the sake of project. But I want you to think about, what do you expect as a short-term achievement, after one event or two events, what it is that you're hoping to accomplish, so you can keep track of the things that you do, how you impact your community. And then outcome, which is the long-term impact, what it is that you're overall hoping your mission of the project will be. Is it to change, agricultural system in, the Philippines? Yes, this is like quite a big, ambitious project. Then break it down into small outputs, into small short-term achievements to actually come closer to that long-term impact. All right. And then when it comes to strategy, I'm not going to tell you something completely new. This is something that you all have thought about already, I'm sure. Please do a brainstorming session. I mean, sometimes you think, okay, I'm just going to start writing, which is a good idea. But sometimes you get together with your team and you start bouncing ideas off of each other. And all of a sudden your innovative idea starts taking shape and form, and it becomes, you know, more solid, more thought through. So think about a brainstorming session. There are so many tools out there online to do a brainstorming. So try to incorporate those strategies. Another thing, please don't, you know, leave it out, but research. Sometimes, and I can't tell you how many applications I get with ideas that, you know, already being, you know, implemented, something that is already happening in some countries. For example, you know, here you are applying thinking that you are the only one, you know, who cares about this issue, who's going to address this issue. But if you would have done a research, you would have found that there are some other organizations already doing this work, you know, doing it quite well, and you could have just joined them, or, you know, added them as your consultants or strategists if you really still want to do your project. So do your research, do your homework, as I say. Don't, you know, sort of cut your project short just by not doing the research, because sometimes, you know, this is, everything would sound great except for, you know, this project has, you know, 5 other projects like that that are already doing work. So another thing is do the outline. So you did the brainstorm, you did the research, do the outline, just the general logic of the sequence, the flow of your proposal, so it makes sense to you. If it makes sense to you, then give it to your teammate, to your neighbor, to your friend. If it makes sense for them, great, you align on something. It probably will make sense for me too when I read it. So then write, right? Just go ahead and write. Proofread for sure. Give it to read to somebody else. That's why I say don't wait until the very end of the last day of the deadline before submitting, right? Have enough days just so somebody else can read it and make sense of it, okay? And only then submit, all right? A few common mistakes that we typically see, again, so people sometimes don't read through instructions and requirements carefully, right? It's about eligibility or other things. If we put instructions in the application, they are there for a reason. If you do not follow instructions or requirements, it tells me that you probably will not be following instructions and requirements if you are selected either, and it might make it more challenging for us to work together. So of course, it's not always true, but I'm just saying, if you have a question, you can always email us and ask us things rather than assume and make a mistake. So read instructions carefully and follow them, please. So another thing is sometimes I see people request funds for sustained salaries or overhead expenses. So sustained salaries would be, you know, monthly salary for you and your teammates in order to run your project. Under YSEALI Seeds for the Future, this is not allowed. You are embarking on this journey as a volunteer. You invest your time, but you are not supposed to receive monthly salary out of YSEALI Seeds funds. Overhead expenses would be also monthly payment for your office or electricity or internet, things like that. Again, some things are individually discussed if it makes sense for the sake of your project, but in the majority of the cases, we don't want to see that you request $7,000 and $5,000 out of that 7 goes towards salary. Like, this is something that you will not get selected for sure. So just be mindful of that. And follow the instructions in the budget template, also available through the application. Submitting documents not in English or in uncommon formats. Again, I would hate for you to spend all this time, you know, effort putting into the application and then submit it in a language that we don't understand. We cannot review it, and therefore you will be disqualified. So uncommon formats is something that is not Word, PDF, you know, JPEG formats or PowerPoint. All of those formats that are acceptable are already listed in the application itself, all right? So, okay, we'll speed it up a little bit. So if there are too many themes, activities, plans with no concrete action plan, you know, so for example, you are really trying to impress so much that you pack your proposal with too many things, but then at the end, I'm not quite sure how you're going to really achieve it in a 9-month time, right? Or with that much money that you request. So make sure that it makes sense. Same goes if it's too little, right? So don't try to chase absolutely everything thinking that you're going to be impressive, but in the end, you know, it just does not seem feasible in the end. Again, lack of evidence of previous successful project implementation. So this means that not necessarily you have to have a full-time job in this specific topic in order to run YSEALI Seeds project, but it's nice to show that you've been a volunteer somewhere, or you work with another team, or at least something to tell us that you have passion and desire and understanding kind of background in the issue that you're trying to tackle. So it does not seem like you woke up yesterday and decided, I'm going to change the world today through, you know, educational webinars or something, and you don't have anything about it. So maybe spend time educating yourself or doing something in that field first before you apply for the funding, so it's more like trustworthy and really promising. Another common mistake is failing at writing a convincing and concise project abstract. Now, next week during our second webinar, we'll talk more about project abstract and how important it is. It needs to be short, specific, action-driven. We'll talk more, but please pay attention to that, because your project abstract is a short introduction to what it is your project is hoping to accomplish. And the last mistake is provides too much or not enough context or background. By too much, I mean, for example, if you are, let's say, Project Tune Map, right, from Indonesia that I was talking about earlier, and let's say their project is to empower people with visual impairment and, you know, recruit volunteers to help mapping imperfections in the pathwalks on the pathways. So if the project would have, for example, told me visual impairment is a condition, blah, 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 and they would tell me like the medical sort of like, it's a little bit too much information. I think, you know, everybody, or like, let's say a pavement is a place on the ground where you walk, you know, this is like, of course, I'm being a little bit silly and kind of joking about it slightly, but I just want to illustrate that sometimes some things are already understood enough, and you do not need to waste your time or my time explaining basic things, right? What I'm saying about, you know, not enough. For example, if there is a specific cultural or local or specific to your community issue or specific, you know, situation that is only known to your community or to your specific country, then you might need to explain and give a little bit of context. Why do you think that bringing, you know, gender equality or something like that, I don't know, is important? Because of that specific issue that you or your teammates have faced or witnessed or something like that. So that's a good context to bring, okay? So have a good balance in that. Not to scare you, but last year we had more than 500 applications submitted, and we've selected 25 projects, all right? So it's quite a competitive process, so that's why we want you to be very careful, very thoughtful about your application. Please tune into the webinars. By the way, you can also listen to last year's webinar series, same series. Sometimes I might have provided different information, but if you're eager to listen to all 4 webinars and you don't want to wait until next week and the week after that, you can go on YSEALISeeds.org, and under frequently asked questions, there is going to be a link to the YouTube channel where all of these webinars are already recorded and stored for you from last year, if you are really eager to go in and learn more. Last slide here, I guess, how to stand out from the crowd, right? So you might ask, okay, if I'm avoiding all of the mistakes, that's probably still not enough for me to be one of those 25 out of 500, right? So what do? Please pay attention to your project name and overall brand. We understand that you might not have like a logo or a fancy website. That's okay. Your website and logo development and things like that could be part of your project implementation once you're selected. But we need to see that you have a strong brand identity or name or something really interesting, innovative going on already in identifying your project that is very promising. Okay, so think it through. Another thing is, what I love to see is well thought beginning and end with sustainability plan after YSEALI Seeds funding period. So I want to see that you really invested in the project and you are not just looking at it as, you know, another medal to get, right? Like it's not like you're just collecting all of the YSEALI awards just for the sake of the award, but you are truly want want to do a change or difference in your community. So quality, not quantity. Definitely, that's my motto. This is what I love to see. You don't need to be too wordy or, you know, submit too many pages in order to show a good quality project. Sometimes a good quality project shines through, you know, with not that many pages. So focus on the quality rather. Then showcase successful track record of previous relevant work, right? So how you do it? In the application, we ask you to submit resumes of those 3 team members, which is the project leader, project secretary, and project treasurer. So we want you to, you know, in this resumes, really look at them and see what have you done before, you know, how is this relevant to what you're proposing now? It's okay if, you know, you don't have an extent, like we don't expect you to be a PhD professor, you know, we understand you are a young leader, you're starting your career, you are on the path, but at least show some kind of, you know, volunteering experience or internship experience, or your education maybe currently is in the field that you are trying to address in your project. And keep the work relevant. Don't submit, you know, more than 2 pages of your resume. 1 page is actually great, better than. So by relevant, I mean, sometimes in the resumes, I see different kinds of work. For example, like, you know, I worked at the coffee shop. That's great if your project is about coffee shop, but if it's not, you know, maybe, you know, it does not say anything to me. So make it relevant, delete things specifically that are not relevant just to make it easier for you and for us to review your work. Okay, give tastefully selected context for your proposal. I've covered that. So we're looking for a really authentic voice with local knowledge and global focus. I really love that statement here. So we want you to be a local, engaged expert with knowledge and background. Again, on your specific level, but then you're also thinking about how what you're going to impact right now is going to impact the world potentially many years down the road, right? So it's quite ambitious, but still kind of doable. I know it's challenging to put 2 and 2 together. And then you're looking for a strong team for sure. So show us that you have a team, because it's very difficult to maintain and manage the project when you are alone. You gotta have a team to do that. And again, I will take some questions right now, but if you have questions or if you don't have time to cover all of the questions, because I see already 55, wow, everybody, this is great. So if we don't cover some of your questions, please send us an email. Our email address is on the screen right now. It's YSEALI@culturalvistas.org. That website is also, that email address is also on our website, which is YSEALISeeds.org. Sometimes it takes a day or 2 for us to get back to your questions, just so you know, because there's a lot coming into our inbox. So if we are slow replying, please forgive us. You can send us a follow-up email as a reminder, but we typically answer everybody. It just takes a little bit of a time. So I'll stop sharing now just so I can have, so I can actually see all of the questions here. All right. All right, everyone. And thank you so much for all of the good things that you are all saying here in the chat and in the questions. So let's see. All right, I'll take one at a time. And if some of the questions I've already answered today, definitely you will be able to go back and review this again. We have about 10 minutes. But just so you know, the recording of this webinar will be uploaded onto Cultural Vistas YouTube channel. And all those of you who have joined today with your email address, you will receive an email with a PDF form of the slides that I shared today, so you can take a look. And we will share a link to the recording of this webinar as well. Just to address, because I assume there's going to be questions about that too. All right. So yeah, and that was the first question. Great. See, this is how I know. Okay, so another question we have here. So Mohammed Abidil Ali is asking, hi, can we utilize the grant? Can we utilize the grant, establish shelter for vulnerable communities and inadequately served populations, LGBTQ, PL, HIV, etc.? If yes, can the grant be used to buy tangible assets such as furnishings? Thank you for your questions. Really great question. So typically we say under YSEALI Seeds funding, we do not encourage you buying like a large equipment or furniture or something like that. But again, if you submit your project and we kind of on individual basis take a look at that, if all of the other aspects of your project kind of fit YSEALI Seed theme, it is feasible, scalable, replicable, sustainable, and kind of have all those things in mind, and overall fits within like YSEALI mission, you might be allowed that. But again, I don't want to say completely yes because I have not seen your proposal yet. So I would let you know, just please apply and we will take a look at that together and let you know. Or if you have a question specifically, maybe you have already a budget and you want to ask, you can send an email to us, we'll take a look. All right, so let's see, another question. How do you consider about the COVID-19 pandemic? Thank you for that. So definitely, as you know, we all have been impacted, and you know, some countries more, some countries less. So the way we are currently looking at this with the new 2021 grantees, once we select the teams, and the selection will be again in February 2021, we will do our kickoff workshop virtually, just for the safety of everybody. We're not going together in person. So virtually we will equip you and empower you, hopefully with important information for you to start your projects successfully. And then if you do have some ideas in your project that could potentially help, you know, with COVID-19 impact, whether it's an economic impact or otherwise, beautiful. We would love to see those kinds of projects with those ideas. Now, if you are the project who, you know, would have, or kind of thinking initially to have massive big events in person, well, maybe you need to rethink it for now, just because again, your implementation period will be from March 2021 until December 2021. And if something happens, you know, and the pandemic is keep happening, and the core essence of your project is an in-person event, well, this might not happen. So rethink your strategy. And when you apply in your proposal, you need to present a plan that could potentially be switched around or pivoted in a way to basically accommodate the fact that the pandemic might be still happening. So maybe not as much in-person events, but more of a virtual events, just as an example, or any other way. All right, for those of you who are putting some questions in the chat, if you don't mind putting them in the Q&A box, that would be helpful, just so then I can see them and I don't have to scroll them, we won't lose them. The chat is to, for basic communication, say hi and things like that, all right? Okay, so, a few more. So those of you who are raising hands, I do see you, thank you. Unfortunately, for the sake of time, if you don't mind, you know, posting your question in the Q&A box or send an email, that would be great. Okay, all right. So, and I know that Jill, my colleague, is posting some information here as well about some of the helpful links for you in the chat, so you can check that out. All right. So the question here we have in the Q&A from anonymous person: what is the project should take place offline? Meanwhile, the pandemic is still increasing. I think we've addressed that one already. So think about plan B. It's always a great thing. In fact, this is what happened with our projects right now when they started in basically in February, March, and then the pandemic happened. And, you know, they had to pivot, they had to change lots of things that they do. Just to make sure that they are still accomplish their mission. And the way I would tell them is that think about your overall mission of your project. Are there alternative ways to get to the fulfillment of that mission? And if the answer is yes, then let's brainstorm and think about those ways, because not everything could be achieved through an, you know, in-person meeting. There are other ways to get to the mission still, all right? Another question: I had issues dead link opening the URL application link, both on Facebook and funds4ngos.org. Can you kindly repost the URL link? Thank you in advance. Do you mean the application link, or is there a YSEALI sign up link? So I see that my colleague has posted that YSEALI sign up link currently experiencing a little bit of an error. So check back the website again if you want to submit your YSEALI membership or become a YSEALI member. But if you're referring to YSEALI Seeds application, we had a technical issue yesterday, I believe, but it has been restored. So check back again. If you still experience issues, send an email to YSEALI@culturalvistas.org. And Jill, if you don't mind posting the email address in the chat as well. So it's YSEALI@culturalvistas.org is the email. It also can be found on our website as well. All right, we'll see. I'm trying to go very fast, so my apologies if I speak very, very fast. Hopefully in the recording, it will be easier because you will be able to stop and listen again. Okay, so another question. I hear from the alumni that each project should have a highlighted program event at the end of the project. What do you think about it? I'm not sure if it's quite true. I mean, some projects choose to have, you know, a big signature event or a highlight event to celebrate their achievements or maybe to attract their stakeholders or whatever else. It is not a requirement necessarily for you to have this like a one big event. It's really up to you, whatever fits into your overall goal of your project and the mission of your project. But I would say it's great publicity. And of course, we want to talk about it. We want to brag about our great projects. So the more, you know, photos or videos we get from each project, you know, the better, because then we can show, you know, the entire world what a great work you're doing in your communities. And so for that sake, you know, sometimes the event is great and inviting a photographer to do these kinds of things is awesome. So I hope that covers your question. Is there a country quota for the grantees? Excellent question. As of now, and it's been always the rule for YSEALI Seeds, we select at least one project from each country for sure. But then for large countries like Indonesia, Philippines, and Vietnam, because of the population distribution is much larger than, let's say, you know, Laos or Singapore, we are definitely having that in mind too when the selection committee is selecting the projects. Typically, we allocate more slots for larger countries like Indonesia, Philippines, and Vietnam. It's different each year depending on the amount of submitted applications from each of those countries. But just as an example, and as you can see on the website, this year we have 6 projects from Indonesia out of 25, for example, because it's a large country and we get the most applications we get is from Indonesia, obviously. So it's quite competitive too, right? The more you know, applications are submitted, the more is competition. But then, so another thing I was going to say, so from the Philippines, for example, it's 4 or 5 projects this year. Last year we had 4. So it's 2 from Malaysia, for example, 2 from Myanmar, but then 1 from Laos. So take a look at the website and it will give you a pretty much of an idea what it might be, you know, this year again. So good questions. I love it. I have a question regarding time size and nationality of additional team members. I'm aware of that the team should be at least 3 persons, and these 3 persons must be between 18 and 35 and registered members of YSEALI and from one of the YSEALI nations. What about additional team members? Are French and German who study and live in Singapore and Thailand? Are they eligible to participate in my team and as an additional team member? The answer is yes. Yes, so if you have like additional, the main thing is that as a project leader, project secretary, and treasurer, you must be citizens of one of the YSEALI nations. You must meet the eligibility criteria, but everybody else could be consultants, supporters, you know, team players, and things like that. So it's great if you involve other people who are locally in your country, you know, and also have interest in, you know, learning and supporting. Okay, I hope that answers that. If a person in the team is over 35, but the rest are under 35, can they apply? So the person who is over 35 could be in the supporting role as an additional team member, but cannot occupy the role of a project leader, project secretary, or project treasurer. So this is really simple. You know, if you're not into titles, that person can still support you and be on your team, just not be technically one of those leadership roles. Wow, 88 questions. I'm not sure we'll be able to get through that in the next few minutes. I'm willing to stick around longer. I know that the webinar is for just 1 hour. So those of you who need to drop out, that's totally fine. I'm not going to be offended, I promise. But I will stick around for a few more minutes just to address a few more questions, just so you know. But then again, join next week and then 2 more weeks after that. We will still have Q&A at the end of each webinar. Okay, let's tackle a couple more, shall we? One member of the project leader is 34 years old. Is the person still eligible to be the project member? Yes. All right. Must the proponent still be age 35 at the start of the project at the submission of the member? Okay. Well, if they are still 35 right now, they are eligible to apply. Okay. Should participants include language certificates such as TOEFL? No, we do not require that. We do require that you have, some knowledge and understanding of English, because you will be interacting with other YSEALI Seeds grantees in English. English is the common language, the kind of language of operation for us all. Besides, I speak English, I speak Russian and Ukrainian, if that's helpful for anybody, but I'm not sure it's really helpful for Southeast Asia. But English is what we understand in the team too, and we will be working with you a lot. You will be writing in English if you are selected. You will be submitting your monthly reports. We will have different virtual meetings. So you do have to have quite a level of English just so you're able to communicate. Keep practicing, but you don't need to submit any TOEFL or IELTS or anything like that. Could you explain the term scalable? I think we covered that in the webinar earlier. So I hope that was covered. If not, please let me know and send me an email about that. But again, just briefly, scalable is something that could be made more, right? So scale up. So basically you start with small, but then next year it could grow bigger in a simple, fast answer. Okay, so let's see. Hello, I have a question. Do a member has to be at 18 years old at the time of application or at the time of project implementation? Good question. So at the time of the application, I would say, and the reason why, and there's quite a few questions coming in, and I'm so, excited that you are, young and driven and, motivated. The issue behind it is that typically, again, I'm not trying to generalize, but I guess I am. Typically, when you are 16, 17, you are still learning, you are getting engaged in things, but we want to show you, because YSEALI Seeds funding is quite a funding to manage, we want to show that there is some kind of track record of previous experience in the way that will be convincing that you will be able to handle this amount of money and really deliver the project. So if you are 18 and you have that, you've had like a job or a volunteering or internship experience, or you were a part of a project before, that's great. Show us that resume, show us that it's convincing. But if you are 16 and this is like the first project that you want to do, I would say join some other YSEALI Seeds project that will be selected, work with them, learn from them, get that experience and apply next year. You will have much stronger chances to be, selected. This is my general advice to those of you who are still like 16, 17, not yet quite 18. So think about really gaining experience, building your resume a little bit more, just so there's more validity, behind your application submission. You don't want to spend all this time and be like heartbroken that you're not selected, because at the end of the day, it's not always about, there's something wrong with you or with your ideas. It's just very competitive, and other people with experience come in as well to compete with you. So think about that. All right, thank you for your patience again, hanging around. If you need to drop out of the call, that's fine. I will stick around for a little more. The questions keep coming. So, and I appreciate my colleagues who are also helping out with answering some of the questions in writing. Okay, the question is, can we apply if we want to do a project that is not one time only? Yes, that's exactly what you need to do. That's exactly what we want for the YSEALI Seeds, a project that has a sustainability in mind, something that will happen during YSEALI Seeds, but gets the momentum and you will keep on building later on. That's what we want to see. It's preferable for us. Can we apply if we are already conducting the project? For example, in education, we need to start along with the school year, which is in the Philippines, has started already, and then have planned for part of the project to be majority conducted from March, December. Yeah, if you have an existing entity, let's say you have an organization or a company or an NGO or a team, and you already started something, but it's not fully developed yet, so you're welcome to apply. Again, everything will be considered on an individual basis. So just think about how you're going to present. Why do you need YSEALI Seeds? Why can't you do it without YSEALI Seeds? Like, is it something prohibiting you, or is the YSEALI Seeds really help you, scale it up or make more impact or something like that? Be convincing in your basically narrative, and that totally. And sometimes I actually love seeing people who already have some kind of small initiative and they really lacking this support from YSEALI Seeds to go bigger, grow more in their impact. So yeah. The answer is yes. I just did, and the result was still the same. Okay, that's probably about the application. Could you please send us an email so we can work with you individually to troubleshoot and see what might be the issue with the application link, if you still have issue with that. Anybody else have issues with application, please let us know in the chat if anybody else experiencing anything with application link and cannot access application or submit it. That's quite important for us to know. All right. I have a question for you that to be selected, do the projects have any interview accept the application? No, we do not require interview with projects, which is easier for some. But difficult is on the side that you need to be so convincing in your writing that there is no interview required, kind of in a way, right? Because we don't do interviews. So be convincing in your writing, no interviews needed. All right. Okay, we addressed already the 18 years old question. So there's no interview with selection again. I see a lot of questions like that, but there will be quite a few meetings or sessions virtually when we will be meeting together with already selected participants, all right? What if the YSEALI awardee for exchange in 2020 but have not applied to the US due to COVID? Will there be okay for them to be the candidate of the structure? So I guess the question is, if you are, eligible in every other way, but you're currently in the United States and you're not home and you cannot fly back home for like COVID reasons. So we will not restrict you from applying. You just need to have a plan for like how you're going to manage your project from abroad. If you are abroad right now, will you be able to get home at some point? Is your physical presence back home needed for your success of your project? And another thing is YSEALI Seeds cannot cover your flight ticket from the United States back home. So I know that I had that question too. So if you are currently in the United States or anywhere else, outside of the Southeast Asia, YSEALI Seeds cannot cover, that kind of flight expense for you. But if your project plans to have some travel within Southeast Asia, this is allowed under YSEALI Seeds funding. Again, if it's safe, if pandemic is not an issue, and you need to plan this in your budget, let's say fly the participants or team members for some important event or something like that, it is allowed. I hope that covers that. All right, and with the slides, like I said, everybody who logged in today with your email address, you will receive sometime later today. So give us some time to upload the video. We'll upload the video recording, and at the same time, we'll send the slides as well to everybody. Okay, so just a couple more minutes, and then we'll let everybody go, and we'll continue on next week. So the question is, this team member, can the team members be added or changed over the course of the project? For example, if the treasurer will drop off the middle of the project, can we substitute them with another? Yes, the question is yes, and unfortunately sometimes it happens, things come up, different commitments, and if you need to, change your, of course it's not desirable, we would like for you to have your team from the beginning until the end, but life happens and we understand that. So in this case, we will just work with you individually to figure out, what is happening, and kind of you can recruit another team member, but you will definitely have to replace the team member that you lost, with somebody else to help you out. So also can some of these team members apply to join YSEALI after November 8th? No, you have to apply before when you're applying for your application, there must be already YSEALI members if they want to take one of the leadership positions, which is project leader, treasurer, or secretary. I hope that covers that. All right. Is there any specific rules from YSEALI for this year's event regarding health protocols, considering many Southeast Asian countries currently still in pandemic right now? I think we addressed that a little bit in the beginning. So definitely your safety and your health is a priority for us. We will not put you at risk and force you to fly and meet hundreds of people or anything like that. And when you plan your project, please make sure that you are thinking ahead and having a plan B or plan C or alternative plans if in-person events are not possible for the rest of the year, 2020 and 2021. Okay, so some of those questions have been already answered. I'll just quickly going to glance over. Do we need to prepare a pitch deck? You mean like an additional support? So in the application, there is additional materials that you can submit. Sometimes it's helpful. I personally, always an overachiever, so if there is an extra space for me to convince somebody about my project, I will use that space. Again, think quality, not quantity. So if there is, let's say, 3 beautiful slides with some visual information about your project, I would say submit it. It helps us visualize and understand your project better. But it has to be relevant. And again, don't send 25 slides. It's overwhelming. So just be concise. But yeah, great question. Okay, so for those of you who experience issues with getting registered for YSEALI membership, this is going to be resolved soon. So please keep on getting back to the website and trying in. Hopefully tomorrow it might work again. All right. So we have addressed an issue of 18 or 35 years old. So the recording of this webinar will be sent to you and will be uploaded onto Cultural Vistas YouTube channel. So you will be able to listen to some answers again, but great, thank you for those questions. Okay, so due to the pandemic COVID-19 right now, could the project be adjusted as a situation going on the next year? I'm not sure what you're trying to ask here exactly. I hope I understand. The projects, you know, can the projects be extended? We would hope that you would plan your project in advance in a way that it could be accomplished by December 2021, because frankly, as you apply, you already know that there is an issue or that there is, you know, pandemic happening, right? So the 2020 grantees were not so lucky. They didn't know that the pandemic will hit. So they were planning big events or like their projects, and then they had to change, and then they had to come up with alternative plans. Okay. Just make sure that you plan ahead and it's convincing for us to see what is your alternative idea for how you accomplish your goals, knowing that the pandemic might be still happening. So a good question is, what's the difference between replicable and train the trainer? I'll address this, and then we have until 9:15 or actually 7:15, 8:15 your time, and then we'll wrap it up. So replicable is something that you could reproduce, or I say copy paste, right? So for example, you do your project in this community, and then you know that this project could be, you know, copied and modified, adjusted, and done in a neighborhood community or in a neighborhood country. So it's replicable. You can make this project sort of accessible and easy to repeat with some adjustments for local needs and culture in a way. Now, train the trainer is more when your project selects a group of people, you invest your time and wisdom and finance into this group of people, so then they go and train somebody else, and so on and so forth, and the cycle kind of goes on. So you train somebody to become a trainer to then go ahead and promote, you know, the activities or address the issues that are important to your project and things like that. I hope that makes sense in a very short explanation. So would YSEALI prefer to accept projects on initial development level or on scale up level? Thank you, great question. Either way, if your project is really innovative, replicable, scalable, you know, it will speak for it. It's like it's gonna, you know, shine through. So we don't have a preference over one or the other. It just needs to be convincing enough that, like I said, it's not like you yesterday just woke up and decided, I'm going to, you know, transform economic system in, you know, Southeast Asia. But then you have, like, your background is in something else completely, right? So it just needs to make sense and have a logical flow. So it's convincing that you are in fact able to do what you're saying you're going to do, okay? Thank you for all the questions. It's quite a bit. We did not expect that many coming in, so I do apologize for not being able to go over every single question. But please, please, please send us your questions in the email. At the same time, please rewatch the webinar recordings that we already have from last year. Everything could be found on the website, which is YSEALISeeds.org. So all of the information is there. Also tune in next week for our second webinar. Well, I will be talking specifically about application sections. We will talk about each segment and what should go where, and then I'll probably spend more time answering questions as well. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining in, and I really appreciate your time. We love hearing from you. We love reading all of this beautiful questions, suggestions, ideas. So please tune in again. And I'm sorry for not being able, I still have 90 questions. There is no way we can get through them right now, but fear not, we will address them. So send us an email again or tune in next week. We will be wrapping up this webinar today. So thank you. And we'll see you back again next week, same time. Thank you, everyone. Hello?